Hello, friends. What an honor it is to be here virtually with all of you. I am so glad that you could make it, even though it's all, just our computer screens. Even that can feel like a challenge these days. But as a writer, you are likely used to facing challenge. Every time a piece of story flits through your mind, or you catch a glimpse of a character in your periphery, or you sit down and you face a blank page. Writing is not easy, but we do it anyway. I want to first thank our hardworking SCBWI team, Rob Sanders, Moira Donahue, Becky Herzog, Fred Kohler, and all of the volunteers for organizing this wonderful online event and for inviting me to be a part of it. Thank you. This award means so much to me for many reasons, but most importantly, it means so much because this is an award that's voted on by all of you, by my friends and my peers. And to be here holding this today, the feeling is truly overwhelming. I have been a longtime member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, almost 10 years to be exact. And in those years, I never imagined that I would be here one day accepting a Crystal Kite Award. I definitely dreamed of it, of course, but I never thought I'd actually make it. That's the funny thing about dreams, is they usually start as this intangible seed of an idea, and they're fueled by nothing more than hope. Over the years, though, I almost gave up on writing. Many, many times. I was a kid who really loved to get lost in stories, and I dreamed of sharing my own one day. But I had a run-in early on with a teacher who discouraged my writing. So at that time, I stopped sharing my work. I took all of my words and I hid them way deep down inside, and I allowed them to go dormant. Still, I was always drawn to the art of storytelling in a way that was very difficult for me to ignore, no matter how hard I tried. And this need to tell stories actually led me in my late teens to the idea of becoming an actress. I thought that perhaps I could tell stories through that medium, if not through written words. And that's when I packed up my station wagon and I drove across the country to Los Angeles. When I arrived in California, I lived in a co-ed youth hostel, and I worked as a waitress as I tried to make sense of life. Funny enough, when I went to my first actual acting audition, I very quickly learned a few things about myself. One, I have incredible stage fright, which surprisingly doesn't work well for actors. Two, I learned that I am a very bad actress. Yeah, it's sad, but it's true. And three, I discovered that it wasn't acting that I was passionate about, it was storytelling, and I still longed to share my own. It was actually around this time that I also went to my very first book signing and I met my first real life author. At that time, back then, I was obsessed with all things fantasy. In particular, well, I still am obsessed with all things fantasy, but at that time in particular, I was very into an author named Terry Goodkind. And when I heard that Mr. Goodkind was going to be at a local bookstore in Pasadena signing books, I jumped in my car and I drove to see him. And as I stood in a line that wrapped, twice around this bookstore, I clearly recall thinking to myself, only, if only I was smart enough, clever enough or brave enough to share stories like that. And it was in that moment that I felt those words that I'd shoved way deep down inside of me begin to stir again. But I wasn't quite ready to listen to them, not at that moment. Instead, I went back to school for a little while. I was still very discouraged about my ability to write, and now my inability to act. So I decided to switch gears, and I attended an art school for a while, and I studied photography. I thought, maybe I could share my stories visually through that medium, if not through written words. And while that was an incredible experience, and one that eventually led me to a career in an artistic field, those words that I'd kept pushing aside were fully awake now, and they began to demand my attention. What had once been a small seed of a dream that I'd buried deep down inside of me had taken root over time and had grown and had become a much bigger part of me that I knew was even possible. You see, I have learned that we writers can go about our day-to-day, but our stories are always there. They're always there, waiting for us, tickling our senses, ready to pounce when we least expect it. Sometimes our words do go dormant, and they hibernate for days or weeks or months, or in my case, years at a time. But storytelling never leaves us. It's just waiting for the right moment to reemerge. Changed, perhaps, but often stronger. Because storytelling isn't just what we do, it's who we are. And that is an idea that I often have to remind myself of, especially these days. These have been very challenging times as we've all faced uncertainty in a shifting world and a changing industry. And I've spoken with so many friends and read blog posts and articles and social media posts about the difficulty of writers finding their words, especially during these stressful times. And words may be fleeting, but they never fully leave. They're just there, waiting for whenever you are ready. And in the meantime, the rest of us are here for you. In the almost decade that I have been active with the SCBWI, I have met some truly wonderful folks. The original critique group that I found through my local SCBWI connection is still my main critique group, and now these writers are some of my very best friends. I recall going to my very first conference many years ago and feeling completely out of place. Talk about imposter syndrome. But I quickly learned a few things about myself at that conference. One, I still had incredible stage fright. I mean, those authors at the open mic events and the pitch panels completely blew my mind. And they still do, by the way. Two, I learned that I was home now. I had found my community. And three, I learned that I did not have to bury my words anymore. I was forced to face how little I truly knew about the craft of writing at that time, but I was no longer alone in my journey to storytelling. Writers, I have discovered over the years, are unlike any other group I have known. This strong community is here to educate, to lift, to inspire, to support, to share, to cry, and to celebrate with you. This is such a unique group, and I am so grateful to be a part of it. To be here now, holding this award, means as much as it does because of the journey that we have all shared together along the way. With that in mind, I want to celebrate my fellow authors who were nominated alongside me. Jillian McDunn, Constance Lombardo, and B. Birdsong, your books are beautiful and your gift of storytelling is something to be celebrated. I also have a few other people I'd like to celebrate and to thank today. My editor, Sarah Rocket, your support and your guidance helped this book bloom. Thank you. To Kayla Heron and the brilliant art department at Sleeping Bear Press, thank you so much for so beautifully bringing JADAV's story to life through art. To my friends, Jennifer Swanson, Annette Pimentel, Kathy Tierney, Sharon Stalker, Lauren Kirsting, Lynn Marie, Heather Mott, Katie Frowley, Nick Pincus, Karina Vacco, and so many others. Without you guys, I would not be here today. Thank you all, and all of the online writing community for that matter, for helping to keep me sane over these long years. Thank you for always challenging me to work harder, to try new things, and just to generally create better stories. Thank you. To learn from you guys, it is such an honor. Shout out to my Jacksonville critique group, to my hugely talented Cloak and Quill friends, to my critique buddies in The Right Stuff, to my sweet friends in our 1 Hour of Freedom group, to my agency siblings at Liza Royce, and to my amazing family and friends, thank you all for being so awesome. It truly takes a village. To all of the parents, the educators, the librarians, the booksellers, and the bloggers out there, it is because of you guys that this book has made it into the hands of young readers around the world. Thank you for continuing to share The Boy Who Grew a Forest with this incredible next generation. These children are going to be the future stewards of this beautiful planet, and I hope that JADAV's story resonates with them as much as it has with me. And to JADAV PAYENG and his wonderful family and all of the people in India, especially in Assam, thank you all for your enthusiasm and your support. It is an honor to share this with you. JADAV was a person who never let go of his dream. He faced challenges while holding on to it tightly from the very beginning, and that alone is something that is hugely inspiring. Not to mention what he then did and accomplished with that dream in hand. But what is most impressive to me about JADAV's story is how long it took for his dream to come to fruition. Dreams take time. And like JADAV's forest, a dream starts from nothing more than a tiny little seed that requires hard work and hope to grow. As we move forward into this new year and we face new challenges, I hope that each of you will hold tightly to your dreams. Water them as often as you can. But don't get discouraged if they take a while to sprout. They take days or weeks or months or even years, because those roots have to grow deep and strong in order to support everything great that is to come. Thank you all for sharing this with me.